Greetings to you. We're doing something different for the next few weeks in these weekly studies I produce. Uh, we've been in the pastoral epistles, Paul's letters to Timothy and his letter to Titus in recent weeks. And now we're starting with one of the most strange books in the Bible, the book of Ecclesiastes, part of the Old Testament wisdom literature. If you have a Bible with an apocrypha, don't confuse it with Ecclesiasticus. This is Ecclesiastes, which appears in all Bibles, not just those with the apocrypha. A number of my regular viewers correspond with me, and I'm grateful. It's usually appreciative in one way or another. And including recently requests that we look into some of the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. And that's difficult stuff, although it includes the Psalms. And as many of you will know, I've done a series of shorter talks aiming around 10 minutes at each of the 150 Psalms. That was a few years ago. They're still available in the archive on YouTube. And I might do some Psalms at more length at some point. But the wisdom literature, of course, also includes Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, and depending on how you list these things, sometimes Lamentations as well, and certainly Job, and some Old Testament scholars would put other material in there too. But we're just doing Ecclesiastes, and I'm spending 5 weeks on it. One of the least understood, dealt with, preached on books of the Bible, apart from bits of chapter 3, which are regularly turned into songs and quoted, and usually quoted out of context, I'm afraid. Ecclesiastes is sometimes described as being the least Christian book in the Bible, or the hardest Old Testament book to relate to the New Testament and the Gospel. I don't think that's true. I think it's perfectly well relatable as long as we know what it's doing. It is very much an Old Testament book. A little bit of introduction to it today, but not much. You'll find some Bible experts doing their best not to prove, but to insist it isn't written by Solomon and it doesn't fit historically where it claims to. Some of these Bible experts really bother me. I think they forget what their real task is. It isn't to be literary critics of the Bible. If it was, perhaps they should be better at it, as those who do real literary criticism in the major languages would understand that work. But the job of those who study the scriptures is to serve the church, to serve the gospel, to serve the purposes of God. And when a book is very clear who has written it, why is it necessary to dispute that? Well, with some of the prophets, it's disputed because the scholars simply don't believe in predictive prophecy, that God can tell the future. And so prophets that claim to be doing that are discounted by some Bible experts. Ecclesiastes isn't claiming to see the future at all. It's just claiming rather clearly to be written by Solomon, king in Jerusalem. He doesn't name himself, but he says the words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. David didn't have many sons who were kings in Jerusalem, only one, in fact. And then verse 12 of chapter 1, I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. Verse 16, I said to myself, I've acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. That fits in so well with the history of Solomon, the one who was asked by God when he was appointed king what single gift he'd most like, and he asked for wisdom. And he was, of course, king in Jerusalem, which not all the kings were, and he was the son of David. Enough said. I'm taking this as written by Solomon, the wisest man who to that point had ever lived, and that's as far as we can go. If you want to question it, well, question it away, but you're not going to get any more help from me on that. I'm going to read the whole of chapter 1. I could easily read chapter 2. We're doing 5 sessions on Ecclesiastes. We won't get through all of it. I'm not intending to cover every verse. 5 sections we'll look at, which gives a flavour, I hope more than a flavour, of the whole book. Chapter 1. The words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes round to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, and the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has already been in the ages before us. The people of long ago are not remembered, nor will there be any remembrance of people yet to come by those who come after them. I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to humans to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see, all is vanity and a chasing after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my mind has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is but a chasing after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and those who increase knowledge increase sorrow. And he goes on, and the next chapter, I will make a test of pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But again, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? And so on. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Yes, the water goes on its circuit down the streams and the rivers to the sea, and then back again to the hills and the rivers and the streams and to the sea. It just goes round in circles. And the wind seems to do the same, and the sun also, it rises and it sets and it rises again, just keeps going round in the same old way. And so does everything else. It goes round in circles. And the more wisdom you have, the more you realize that things aren't right and can't be right and can't be sorted. There are things that are crooked that can't be made straight. There are things that are lacking that can't be satisfied and completed. The more we understand, the more we realize that things aren't quite what they should be. There appears to be a brokenness and a purposelessness in the world. And that, in lots of ways, is what Ecclesiastes is about. The more you understand, the more you realize that you can't understand it because it doesn't quite work. In much wisdom is much vexation. Those who increase knowledge increase sorrow. And he goes on in the next chapter to say, if you just do all you can to gain pleasure, you'll find that doesn't satisfy either. The world doesn't quite satisfy us. The world doesn't quite seem to be right. And he doesn't say I sought wisdom from God, but he tells you I acquired great wisdom, and I sought to search out by wisdom all that is done under heavens. And he comes to the conclusion that actually this gift of wisdom, which is useful for ruling and understanding, doesn't actually lead to a complete satisfaction or inner peace. There's missing, something missing. That's the big theme of Ecclesiastes, really. A couple of little technical bits. Uh, Chapter 1 begins with the words of the teacher. Now, that word teacher keeps coming up. It's translated differently in different Bible versions. You'll see it also as the preacher. In Hebrew, it is Koheleth, spelt either with a K or with a Q, depending on how you like to transliterate your Hebrew. Koheleth. And that word means the caller or the convener, the one who calls people together or who gathers people, someone who gathers a crowd to give a speech, someone who gathers people around them because they have wisdom or good things to impart. Someone perhaps who gathers things round people round because they think there's something new to be heard or said or seen. Someone who can pull a crowd is Koheleth. Some Bible translations just call him Koheleth. It's the name Solomon gives to himself for the purposes of this book, because clearly he can gather a crowd, even though the teaching in Ecclesiastes is enigmatic, it's difficult, it's not satisfying, but it's quite philosophical, and it tickles the imagination and the thinking without ever fully satisfying it. But he says that's what the whole world is like, and the whole condition of the world. So we can call him Koheleth with a K or with a Q. We can call him the preacher. We can call him the teacher. The Bible I'm using calls him the teacher, so I'll stick with that. And his big theme that is repeated again and again, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. And that's an interesting little word. Um, in Hebrew, it's hebel or hebel, or if you're using the modern day Hebrew language, it's hevel, because the ancient B has become a V in modern language. But Bible times and Middle Ages times, when the first English translations were made, it was hebel. It's exactly the same word as Abel. That's just a different pronunciation or English spelling of it. Abel, the second son of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel or Habel. The sons of Adam and Eve were named in the story back in Genesis by Eve. She called the first one Cain, meaning I've gotten a man. Astonishment at the birth of another human, which hadn't happened before. I've gotten a man with the help of the Lord. And Cain reflects that I've begotten, I've given birth to a human being. Doesn't mean man in the male sense. It's like I've born a human. And astonishment on her part. Her second son, she just calls rather more simply Hebel, which means a breath. Can you just picture the birth of this little baby? No hospitals or midwives around in those days, the birth and the moment, the decisive moment, obviously the baby coming out and all that, but it takes that first breath. And then it's a living thing. It was sort of alive in the womb in a different fashion and probably kicking around and active, but that life depended on its mother. It got all its requirements through its mother. And now, can it be independent of the mother, at least in terms of breathing and heart and so on? It still needs feeding, but can it become a living entity outside the womb? Well, it all depends on that first breath, doesn't it? Almost magical, the first breath. As the baby breathes in a little gasp, and that's it. It's going now. It's working. I've given birth to a human being who's alive, and that is Hebel, that breath. But as the word is used in the Bible, um, it means a breath. That the tiniest difference between life and death can just be a faint breath. It can be a little blowing of the wind, a tiny little breath. It can even, one or two places, the best translation would be it's just a bit of hot air. It's sort of nothing. What you're saying is just a breath. Could pass away. It's meaningless. It's rubbish. It's nothing. It's the tiniest breath. There are different words in the Bible for breath and wind, and several of them relate to human life. The words for throat and the words for spirit or soul are breath words. Breathing is what marks us. It's the sign of being alive. And this breath word that means a great deal, but it's almost nothing. It's almost emptiness. It's almost zero. It's almost not measurable. It might be of value, but doesn't seem to be. It needs explaining. It needs understanding because on face value, it's nothing. Tiniest puff of wind, tiniest breath of air. What's the meaning of the waters running down the hills into the river? What's the meaning? And into the sea. What's the meaning of that? Given that the water will go back from the sea through the rain into the mountains and down again. What's the ultimate purpose and meaning of that? Can't figure it. It's just like a tiny breath of wind. It's vanity. It's emptiness. It's meaninglessness, which is how Another Bible version will try to translate vanity meaninglessness. That's just too big and cumbersome a word. But what is the meaning of the sun going round again and again and again every day for years and hundreds of years and millions of years? What's the meaning? It's it's vanity. It just happens. It doesn't mean anything, does it? And Ecclesiastes, which is the same word as teacher, just a different language. It's the Greek version of Koheleth, one who gathers, calls people together. We're used to the word ecclesial, meaning something to do with the church, or ecclesiastical, because the church is the gathered together, the people who are gathered together. And Ecclesiastes is the one who gathers people together. Uh, Ecclesiastes is the Greek word for Koheleth in the Hebrew, and English convener, the convened, the called together, uh, those who are being taught by a teacher, that sort of idea. Well, Ecclesiastes, the teacher, Koheleth, tries to understand the meaning of everything. What's the meaning of the sun in its circuit? What's the meaning of the wind blowing one day from the south and one day from the north? It can't make its mind up. What's it about? The meaning of the water cycle, the meaning, in fact, of one generation of people after another. What's the meaning? What's the purpose of it all? It's like a puff of wind. Comes and it goes. Sun comes over there where I'm looking and goes round that way and finishes over there. And then the next day it does the same, and so on. And one generation follows another. We'll all be gone one day, and there'll be others instead of us. What's the meaning of it? It's, as far as human wisdom can tell, it doesn't have a clear purpose. Where's it going? What's its sense of direction? What's the overall vision? The teacher is struggling because his wisdom tells him there must be an overall vision and an overall purpose to all this. And somehow we must fit into some big overall purpose and plan. And so must the sun and the wind and the water. And one generation after another. Is it just going round in circles, or is it going somewhere? That's why he says vanity of vanities, all is vanity, because all he can see and all he can think is that it's going round in circles. In the next session, we will see a little bit of the solution. He analyzes what the problem really is in chapter 3, and we'll, of course, come to that. But for now, he's laying out the problem. He says, you know, he doesn't say by God's grace, but by God's grace, we get that from reading Solomon's story, the wisest man who ever lived. And by human logic and wisdom and reading every book under the sun and talking to other wise people, he can't find a direction and a purpose for everything. He can't find that deep meaning. Where do we belong? How do we belong? How do we fit in? How does the sun fit in? How does the water fit in? Is it just there going round in circles forever and ever? Are we just there going round one generation after another forever and ever? You get the gist. Verse 8, all things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. And in many ways, that's true. Science and technology can do the odd clever invention, but when you get to the deep meaning of what's going on and the brokenness of the world and the understanding of the brokenness of humanity, then you realize there's stuff here that can't be fixed. If it was going round in circles and it was perfect, well, might be a very beautiful thing. But it's going round in circles and it's beautiful, but it's broken as well. Verse 15, what is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. What is it that's crooked? According to the Bible, what's crooked above all things? The human heart. Can't be made straight. What's lacking cannot be counted. Holiness, godliness. There are gaps in our character, in our lives, in who we are, in how we tick, in how human relations work, in how history works. There are gaps even in the world itself and crookedness. There are earthquakes and there are terrible natural disasters, and it goes round and it goes round and so on. But occasionally there's a mighty destructive wind, or occasionally there are great water floods, and occasionally the sun just gets too hot and burns or disappears and things are too cold. The cycle of life isn't perfect, and we don't just, as it were, get old and die gracefully and gently. We get illnesses and things go wrong, and sometimes if we fall badly, we break. This cycle of things, people and the sun and the wind and the water and everything else, it's sort of going round in circles, but not perfect circles, broken circles, crooked circles sometimes, and that can't be mended. And I've developed great wisdom, or been given great wisdom, and I've studied so many things, and I've realized that what's crooked can't be mended. So he's in a bit of a pickle. You might say he's thinking too hard. Well, he will agree with that. In much wisdom is much vexation. Those who increase knowledge increase sorrow. He's thinking too hard, poor man. And he's coming up against some of the great conundrums of life. And we're leaving it there for the first section, except to say, and important to say, where all this is going to point eventually is that we need a right relationship with God. I'm cheating. We need a right relationship with God, and the New Testament will make it very clear that there is a purpose in all this, and there most definitely is purpose and plan in this world that God has made, even though we experience it as broken. And in Jesus and through Jesus and through the making of the new heaven and the new earth and the redemption of all things through Jesus, all the problems of Ecclesiastes will be solved and more than. But for now, the problem itself is there. So we read Ecclesiastes to learn, and ultimately to learn that we need to be God-focused and God-centered. What's he been doing? He's been studying and describing the world as we see it. Perhaps we need to look at the world as God sees it. Perhaps we need to look beyond this world towards God himself. More next time. God bless.